Goodnight Pun Pun isn't a story that simply unfolds, it's one that seeps into your soul and forces you to confront the most painful, uncomfortable truths about life. From the moment I started reading, it felt as though I've been dragged into a dark emotional labyrinth where every twist and turn revealed yet another layer of human suffering. This manga didn't just change how I saw life, it exposed the raw fragility of existence and reminded me of how overwhelming and relentless the weight of living can be. What makes Goodnight Pun Pun so hard is how it mirrors the quiet, often overlooked tragedies of everyday life. We follow Pun Pun, a young boy with dreams and hopes like any other, as he slowly spirals into the harsh reality that life is rarely what we expect or want it to be. Simplicity with which his early childhood innocence portrayed gives way to crushing disillusionment as he grows older. And it's in this journey that the manga's brilliance and its emotional devastation truly lies. Through Pun Pun's story, I begin to see my own struggles reflect back at me, the nagging feel of failure, the weight of expectations, the isolation that comes with growing up and realizing that the world is far less kind than you thought. Goodnight Pun Pun doesn't offer any comforting solutions or easy answers. It simply presents life as it is, chaotic, unpredictable, and sometimes unbearably cruel. One of the hardest things to grapple with Goodnight Pun Pun is its stark portrayal of growing up. For many of us, childhood is a time of innocence and hope, where the world still feels wide open with possibilities. As we follow Pun Pun into adolescence and eventually adulthood, we see how quickly that hope can be crushed by the weight of reality. Life doesn't unfold like we dream it to be. Instead, it becomes a series of compromises, disappointments, and small tragedies that chip away at us over time. Pun Pun's evolution from an innocent child to a deeply troubled adult is painful to watch because it feels so real. His internal struggles, his desire for love and happiness, and his deep-seated self-loathing reflect the quiet battles so many of us fight on a daily basis. As he grapples with family trauma, toxic relationships, and his own personal failures, it becomes clear that Pun Pun's journey is not just about growing up, it's about the slow erosion of hope, and that's what hits the hardest. Goodnight Pun Pun shows that growing up isn't about gaining wisdom or maturity. Sometimes it's just about surviving the emotional toll life takes on us. One of the most resonant themes in Goodnight Pun Pun is how expectations both from society and ourselves can crush us under the weight. Throughout the manga, Pun Pun is burdened by an overwhelming pressure to meet the expectations placed on him. Whether it's from his family, his peers, or even himself, he constantly feels like he's not enough, like he's somehow failing at life. And as someone who often struggled with feelings of inadequacy, this hit me hard. In Goodnight Pun Pun, we see how those expectations twist Pun Pun into someone who is almost unrecognizable by the end. His desire to be loved, to succeed, and to find happiness becomes a suffocating weight that drives him further into isolation and despair. It's a reflection of the way many of us are shaped, sometimes destroyed, by the pressure to live up to standards that feel impossibly high. For me, reading this manga made me confront my own fears of failure and the way they shaped my choices and my self-worth. Goodnight Pun Pun does so well is show that life doesn't always go the way we want it to, and sometimes, no matter how hard we try, we still fall short. That's not an easy truth to accept, but it's one that the manga focuses us to confront over and over again. Perhaps the most painful aspect of Goodnight Pun Pun is its unflinching portrayal of mental health struggles and the isolation that often accompanies them. Pun Pun's descent into depression and self-hatred is depicted with such raw honesty that it becomes almost unbearable to read at times. His inability to connect with others, his constant feelings of worthlessness, and his deep-seated loneliness resonate in a way that feels too real. As someone who struggled with mental health, Goodnight Pun Pun was both cathartic and deeply unsettling. It was a reminder that depression is not always something that can be fixed or cured. Sometimes it's a lingering shadow that follows you throughout life. Pun Pun's journey is not one of the redemption or healing. It's one of survival, and that, in many ways, is more honest than the narratives we're often given about mental health. Pun Pun's isolation is not just about being physically alone, it's about feeling disconnected from the world around him. His inability to communicate his feelings, his sense that no one truly understands him, is something that I and many others can deeply relate to. Goodnight Pun Pun captures the essence of what it means to feel trapped in your own mind, unable to escape thoughts that weigh you down. If there's one thing that Goodnight Pun Pun makes abundantly clear, it's that love is not the simple redemptive force we often imagine it to be. Throughout the manga, Pun Pun's relationships, whether with with his family, friends, or romantic partners, are fraught with misunderstandings, toxicity, and emotional damage. Love in the world of Goodnight Pun Pun is messy and often destructive. Pun Pun's romantic relationships, in particular, are painful to watch because they reflect the darker side of love, the side that is born out of insecurity, fear, and desperation. His relationship with Aiko, the girl he idolizes from childhood, becomes toxic, codependent mess that ultimately consumes them both. It's a stark reminder that love, when driven by desperation and emotional damage, can be a source of immense pain rather than happiness. For me, this is one of the most impactful aspects of Goodnight Pun Pun. It made me reconsider my own relationships and the ways in which I might have idolized love or placed unrealistic expectations on it. The manga shows that love is not always the answer to life's problems. In fact, it can sometimes make things worse. Goodnight Pun Pun is not an easy manga to read. It's emotionally draining, often uncomfortable, and unrelenting in its portrayal of life's darkest realities. But it's also a story that stays with you long after you finish it, because it forces you to confront the things you might otherwise avoid thinking about. It changed the way I see life, not because it offered hope or solutions, but because it validated the pain, the struggle, and the messiness of being human. This manga is a reminder that life is not always beautiful or fair. It's full of moments that will break you, relationships that will hurt you, and expectations that will crush you. But in its darkest moments, Goodnight Pun Pun also shows that there is a strange kind of beauty in simply surviving, in acknowledging the pain and continuing on anyway. For anyone who has ever lost, broken, or overwhelmed by the weight of existence, Goodnight Pun Pun is a story that resonates in ways you never expected. It's not an easy read, but it's an important one, because it captures the raw, unfiltered truth of what life can really be like.